Welcome to Retraction. I'm Antoine.
I'm Jamie, and we are reversing course through discourse on the pod. Before we get started, please subscribe, like, and share on YouTube. Comment as well. Follow us on Twitter at Retraction Media, and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and more.
It's a New Year's episode, people. New year. Happy New Year.
New year, new you, new me,
New everyone. New everything.
everyone.
Yeah, it's a new numbers at the end.
Would I be weird? It's still
three.
the holiday season. Would I be weird if I started saying happy winter solstice instead of happy holidays?
You should just say Happy Festus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Festus for the rest of us. Or was it?
Festivus.
Festivus. That's it. Festivus for the rest of us.
The airing of grievances and the feats of strength.
Well, I mean, it's a perfect holiday. It combines old world paganism with new world urbanism.
But that's what I kind of mean, in that there is something about the pagan approach, minus any kind of sacrifices that may have taken place,
Of course.
that it's just about the natural phenomena around them, and not really. I mean, there was other stuff, but when we modernized it, we actually got away from the stuff that actually was relevant.
Right.
The celestial happenings that were real. I mean, we kind of dropped the real stuff and kept all the fake. Shouldn't we just have just the real?
You're getting deep in the new year, 2023, year of depth. Retraction gets depth.
I mean, you see these ancient civilizations and they build these temples and we're like, oh my God, they aligned them to the stars and the solstice and the equinox and all these different things. And we don't do any of that today, but we're marveled by it, but we could easily do it. I don't know, just kind of, and it's real.
Yeah.
There's
right.
something inherent about that. So I don't know. I was kind of curious. Maybe we'll bring it back.
Too busy looking down instead of up.
Right. I'm gonna start a movement. I don't know what I'm gonna call this movement, but it's going to be the return to natural observations and real cycles. That's the thing, is this was all for a reason. They needed to track these cycles for their planting season and other plantings. I don't know.
You could be a druid. A return to druid.
We don't need to be weird about it either, though. It doesn't have to be a weird thing. We could, again, drop all the fake stuff and just kind of be it's the equinox.
No, I think it needs to be.
Solstice.
It needs to be a little weird. No,
it needs to be a little weird.
I think you need to go out and you need to take down a grizzly, wear its pelt, walk around at night, especially during a full moon, around your property, your backyard, if you will, naked, naturally, carrying a wooden staff. So you need to learn to whittle a bit, get a little carpentry in, and I think that's going to be really helpful for your winter solstice. Happy solstice. In fact, when people pass your property as you're naked wearing your bear skin, you should yell out to them, "Happy solstice."
Yeah, that's one way to go. That's definitely a take on what I'm talking about, but I think I'm going to head in a different direction and just not make it weird.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right.
Just a thought. Just a thought that popped into my head. So,
new year, new thoughts.
This is going to be a wrap-up episode, a wrap-up of 2022, dedicated, a tribute to our listeners. And what better way to look back at the year than to see what our listeners had to say? And to do that, we ran 14 polls this year. And we're going to explore what you've told us.
I look forward to it. Jamie. Giving the listeners a voice, because that's what this is about. It's about a voice to the people via our retractions.
So to make it a little more interesting, what I'm thinking, if you want to play along, is, and you may or may not be familiar with the polls and all of the answers. It's been 14. It's been throughout the year. But I was thinking that I would read the question and maybe you, Antoine, could cast your vote and let us know what you think the answer is.
Oh, I love it. I love good games, and this is right up there with them. Let's go. Let's play a little Jeopardy. Can I answer the form of a question?
No.
Okay.
Don't confuse me.
Gotcha.
How long should a podcast be? Is it, you have 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 120 minutes?
I feel like we missed out. As the last answer should have been as long as it needs to be.
Oh, that's
It's a
fine. I mean,
shame.
I listen to some podcasts that are like 4 hours, 6 hours long. So that
Dan
is,
Carlin, hardcore history.
you
That's a
got it.
hardcore listener. That's what it
Shout out.
requires. six 6 hour pod requires a hardcore listener for a hardcore pod. I will say this. Generally I think I hit 30-minute pods, 45-minute pods. That's usually something around there. So what was it? It was between 30 and 60. So I guess it's gonna
30,
be
60, 90, 120.
so 60. 60 is what I'm hitting.
So you bring up a good point because the 45-minute one is an interesting one too. And we probably should run this again because this was actually the first poll that we ran, and we didn't get a ton of responses, nothing like what we've seen from our second poll on. But it was split 3 ways between 60, 90, and 120, and no one voted for 30. So I feel like we need to put that one back out there.
I definitely think we need to reevaluate that. I mean, it's kind of cool that in the beginning we had the hardcore crowd. I guess that's what you were capturing. But I think most people, they like the daily. They love a good like 27-minute, 30-minute, brush up of what's going on, what's happening. I guess it depends on what you're going to podcast for. If you want something involved, something that's very long form, then yeah, I guess you're more the 90-minute to 120 crowd.
All right. So we'll run that one again. I think that one should be run again. Now, the second poll, and this is the last of these kind of like preference type polls. We'll get into more like topic driven stuff after this one. But how do you listen to podcasts? And the options were Apple, Spotify, Google, and YouTube.
Okay. Apple, I would say, the ghost of Jobs, since we're in a holiday mood. I actually believe that Steve Jobs might, in fact, be the ghost of Christmas present.
The big jolly guy.
Yeah, I think that's who he'd become if we were in that universe.
Really, I would think like the future, right? Wouldn't he fancy himself?
Was it that death?
Well,
Jobs
yeah,
wouldn't put a cloak over himself, but you're right, actually, because he had the black sweater, turtleneck. You're right. Maybe that is a modernized. It's an Apple version of death. It's sleek. It's updated. It's new. I could see him doing it. I could see him even greeting you with it's hey, I'm deaf. Time to think different.
He just doesn't strike me as the jolly guy.
I don't know. I feel like in the afterlife, I feel like that he people forget, he was the guy who used to drop acid. He was careful, he was driven, but he liked to think outside the box. I feel like present is the thinker, is the not so what are we gonna do? What are we gonna take about this guy's current situation in life and make him regret his choices? I feel like I think that involves the most amount of out of the box thinking, the most amount of creativity personally. So anyone could do past. I mean, how many mistakes has anyone made in life? I mean, come on. Past that's like kindergarten style. Past is juvenile.
So Antoine thinks Apple. So Antoine thinks people use Apple to listen to their podcast. And Antoine, you are correct. 45% of the vote said Apple, 21% Spotify, 16% Google, 16% YouTube.
Ghost of Christmas present is smiling as we speak.
All right, now some fun ones. Now we get into what people think, right? Question: should we end daylight savings time?
Answer: yes.
And you would be
so
right.
Easy.
With 92% of the vote, 92% of our audience says that we should end daylight savings time. We've done a whole episode on this in the past. Whatever happened with that? Has there been any update with Marco Rubio's attempt to circumvent the normal rules of the Congress, of the Senate, to get this through, and then he got slapped on the wrist?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to give an update next daylight savings time because it's going to come around again.
It's going to still be here.
And it will be just as annoyed, just as irate. And we'll throw the poll up and everyone will vote with a resounding yes. Please get rid of this blasted thing that disrupts all our lives, upends basically circadian rhythms across the human sphere.
Has there been anything so ingrained in everyone's lives that has just been taken away, changed, reversed? I mean, has there been anything so consequential that it's just something you're conditioned, you take for granted, it's just a part of our routine twice a year? Has there ever been anything on this scale that has ever been undone or changed?
Sure, the gold standard.
It's true.
Your
Did
money
that impact? I mean, that
is
was
now your imagination.
well. Now I was going to say it's kind of more conceptual, but it's fair. That's fair. I mean, it didn't change anyone.
It
Didn't
changed a
change
lot.
any.
Well, it changed. I mean, it changed people's. I mean, in the beginning, I think people were very much like, I gotta buy gold. I mean, it's to this day. When anytime there's a fear of recession or a fear of some sort of depression, absolute catastrophe, gold skyrockets.
You're an
So
interesting species. Anytime our economy tanks, we hoard metal.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
We hoard
Not even not even
this
strong metal,
stuff
not
in
metal
the
you
in the
could.
ground.
Yeah, not metal you could build anything out of. Like the most pliable, weak metal
It's a
around
good
is what we
conductor,
hoard.
non-corrosive. I hear,
It is a
right? Is
good
that
conductor, yes. Yeah, there's that, but it's
road or whatever? So I guess there's that.
you don't build gold swords. You don't build, you know, nothing that can really get you out of a jam. Nothing like a zombie apocalypse. Having a massive amount of gold isn't necessarily as helpful to you. So
Just an interesting observation from you mentioned Dan Carlin, as he would always say, he would take the alien perspective, looking down on us and saying, "What are these things doing?"
yeah,
Um,
very
so
bizarre creatures indeed.
next question: What Democratic, I should say, what Democrat scandal is worse? And there were three options here: the NATO summit that included a Russian salad, Obama's tan suit, or Obama's bike helmet, which, if anyone isn't familiar with that, the tan suit, the guy simply wore a tan suit. And his bike helmet was just the fact that he wore a bike helmet. And before Antoine answers this question, which is a silly question, but it's something that was derived from Fox News's coverage, everyone should be riding their bike helmet. That's not anything to make fun of anyone for. There's nothing funny about brain damage. Quick PSA there. Wear your helmet if you're on a bike. But so you had the NATO summit that included a Russian salad, Obama's tan suit, Obama's bike helmet. What do you think the audience said? Tongue in cheek.
Russian salad.
No, 56% tan suit.
Mm, People do not like a tan suit.
Now, what? I mean, this is a ridiculous question, but Fox News covered this stuff. I mean, the Daily Show did a hilarious job compiling everything and making fun of it. But this was coverage. You could have turned on the TV at any time and saw Hannity or any of the other people losing their minds. There was another one where he did a latte salute, they would call it, where he had a coffee in his hand and he was getting off his helicopter or Air Force One and he saluted someone, and that was like extremely disrespectful to the military and the rest of it. This is acceptable?
Well, I think it was in the before times. It was before, presidents tried to flush documents down a toilet. It was
multiple times.
It was before you had a lot of, I don't know, what we might call senile behavior as part of the presidency. So, it was, it pushed the envelope now, that it was more carefree back then. All we had to worry about were two world wars that were considered world wars. Just the world happened to be fighting in a couple of regions over, I don't know, resources, oil, and I guess terrorism, maybe. But yeah,
I remember Fox News with the bike helmet thing, and they put side by side images of Obama on his bike with his helmet and Vladimir Putin shirtless on a horse, and we're making direct comparisons on their manliness.
That's a shame, because I think that's a missed opportunity. They should have had FDR without his seatbelt. Why do you wear a seatbelt, Obama? Real presidents, manly presidents, they went without, especially before the invention of it.
I
wonder how that ages, though, because that was before the Ukraine war. I wonder how you could how you could get that onto the airwaves of Fox these days to say, hey, remember when you were fans? of Vladimir
They still
Putin?
are fans. They are fans. You had Tucker on there saying that he hopes Russia wins the Ukrainian war.
Wow, I guess I don't follow as closely. I didn't think that was happening, but okay, all right,
Yeah,
interesting.
there's a lot of.
I want to go back to the tan suit though, because have you ever worn a tan suit?
Um, I've had a light brown suit.
Was it tan?
I don't know.
Yeah, it probably wasn't. And I've never worn a tan suit. In fact, I think most men polled. In fact, that's a good poll. Have you ever worn a tan suit? Because as much as I don't like, what Fox tries to do with their outrage culture, I'll have to hand it to them. A tan suit is pretty offensive. and whoever was the stylist of that day should have definitely consulted him otherwise, because
You don't know.
that's not
You
appropriate.
Antoine, you don't know. Maybe that was the style of the day. People would wear like suede and pinstripes and all these different things.
In the 20s, I mean, or what is it? Did he wear a zoot suit?
Maybe at this moment in time that
he would have
they
been
were all
better
the
off
rage.
wearing a zoot suit, because at least
Maybe this is when that song came out. I don't know.
okay.
Was it
Fine.
Zoot Suit Riot?
Zoot suit, right? Yeah. I do not remember when that came
I
out.
think that might have been before that, but maybe there was a resurgence.
Maybe. Anyway,
who knows? Anyway,
who knows?
so yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Other one, with everything happening with Elon taking over, a lot of people were talking about a mass exodus from Twitter, which may or may not happen. He's definitely doing his best to try and make it happen. But the question we had was, what Twitter alternative is everyone considering? Do you have any thoughts on a guess?
You didn't put up a poll? You didn't put up three, like a number of options?
There were some options. What Twitter alternative is everyone going to? Your choices, Antoine, are Mastodon, Tribal Social, Amino, and Discord.
Discord doesn't have the viewability as Twitter currently does, so I would have to assume that most people are going to Mastodon, and not because I've ever been on a Mastodon, but because it just sounds strong. It sounds like something that's ready to trample over, I don't know, whatever you don't like in life.
A little weak bird.
Caveman, it's going to trample through some cavemen.
So Mastodon is right, 69% of the vote. Funny enough, Discord came in second at 17.
Okay.
17%.
Interesting. It just doesn't have the, there isn't like a homepage to Discord that has stuff you could see. So I'm assuming Mastodon does, since it's like a direct competitor.
I've never been on it either. Next question.
Oh, okay.
Would you?
That was it.
Well, unless you had something else you want to go on to that.
I was hoping you could tell me a little bit more about Mastodon. You never seen it?
I've never been on it. I've never been on Mastodon. I know that. Well, is that the one where it has like different servers? I know that there was one that everyone was complaining about where you have to like log on in a certain way and get like your experience depends on the server that you're on or something like that.
I mean, I can believe
very
that.
confusing.
If it's very fledgling, then they probably have multiple servers that you'd have to, like an MMO kind of thing. For anyone out there who plays MMOs, shout out.
Don't know what that is.
Yeah,
but
yeah, you choose different servers. Which servers are closer to your location are going to have less latency and less lag.
What most people are complaining about, funny enough, is that they're being harassed on these other platforms.
Of course,
there's I guess nowhere near the Discord. Not to use that word, but because it's on one of the other platforms, but there's nowhere near the discourse that you would get from that you get on Twitter. So it's just interesting that people are leaving it because they're afraid of the hellscape, or supporting an oligarch in that way. But then they're just getting harassed off of all of the other ones. They said that there's good people on there, but there's just nothing to. I guess they don't have teams to moderate the content, moderate the accounts.
Yeah, it's really amazing. A small amount of coordinated people, regardless of what their desire is to do, however they want to disrupt something, it could be very impactful. So that's what's so funny, because I was watching the Meghan Markle Harry Netflix special, and they have an episode where they talk about how this basically security expert narrows down all the hate that Meghan Markle was receiving online to something like 80 coordinated accounts. And because of the way social media works, their voices, disruptive voices, are amplified over I don't know, more moderate voices, or so, I don't know, more uplifting voices, if you will. And yeah, and it basically, that it's like it was this source of like a pitted hell of hate coming after this woman. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. It wasn't like thousands or millions of people. It was just like something. It was like under 100 accounts were responsible for like basically 99% of vitriol that she was receiving. And so I'm just saying, I'm not surprised that
Yeah, and when you
these
think about it,
services, without proper moderation, you could just be chased off because trolls like to troll.
I mean, you think about all the users, and there's probably millions. But
Yeah.
if you also think about 80 to 100 accounts harassing you, that's a lot of harassment. I don't know
Yeah.
80 or 100 people. I can't imagine 100 people, 80 people, 50 people harassing me. That would be a lot. So that's, and then whatever that snowballs into, because you have that, it kind of is a magnet for others that feel that way. And then you have people who are just impulsive and maybe hop on the bandwagon. It could grow out of control pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
I would believe that. I wonder if they were bots or real accounts.
Well, apparently a lot of them were then alternates. So they basically traced back behind all the alternate accounts, behind any spin-off accounts, to like basically, yeah, it was just like a core group of people.
Oh, wow. So there was 80 to 100 people, but many, many more accounts they were controlling.
Yeah,
wow.
Basically. Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. It shows you how dangerous social media can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
From a harassment point of view, but also from an influence point of view.
Yeah.
What you see, people tend to like believe what they see.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing a lot of stuff and you think that, oh, wow, all these people feel or think this way, or this is the news that everyone is sharing, that could become your reality pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, when people liken it to the Wild West, I think it's a very appropriate and apt likeness, because it's, to us today, a town like Tombstone, for instance, where people were getting murdered every hour. You had duels. You had it was just like so lawless. People today would be like, how can that ever happen? Well, when you have early settlement, early growing pains, as they will, as some may like it to say, the internet is still in its infancy. And I think that hundreds of years from now, or yeah, exactly 60 something, 70 years from now, it will be almost unheard of to be like, wait, what do you mean someone could just harass you indefinitely and just keep creating accounts to make your life miserable? And some people are committed suicide over it, and duress and mental health is an issue. I mean, people would be like, wow, that was crazy. What a crazy time that was.
Do you think, so keeping with that analogy, do you think the romanticized freedom of the West, life of a cowboy type thing, is equivalent to how we perceive freedom of speech?
Yes.
And the freedom that the internet requires to thrive? We talked about it being a delicate ecosystem in the past, and we're not quite sure how to conserve it at this point. But do you think that looking at it in those ways where we put too much emphasis on the freedom?
Absolutely. Similar to just like the Old West, because again, if you look at these towns, how many, the names of the outlaws, that because they're the ones romanticized. You know the name, like what is it, OK Corral, what Wyatt Earp, and their names because they're outliers. There are so many other people that are just trying to be a doctor, trying to escape some sort of oppression in Europe, have moved out west to buy a house and raise a family. That was the majority of people. And yet what you remember are a tiny slice of the minority of people who are out there gunslinging and killing people. So it's going to be the same thing. It's the same thing we're experiencing today. Majority of people don't want to harass people online. They just want to exist. They just want to use it as communication, connect with people they haven't seen in a while, and maybe get some news and entertainment. That's an average person.
It is an interesting thing. You have like the Wild West outlaws, but then you even have like bank robbers, like what was his name, John Dillinger? I might have that wrong, but
you mean like in the 20s? Sure.
Yeah,
like Bonnie and Clyde,
Bonnie and Clyde, and like Machine Gun Kelly, and and all these different kinds of people, even the mobsters, right? You'll have Capone, but then you'll have Gotti and everyone. And maybe that almost is an answer to my question, because I was going to say, do we still celebrate the criminal. And maybe the mob is the closest thing in modern times that we have to that.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Because they used to write stories
Well,
about the
there's
gunslingers and all that stuff.
yeah,
And it was like comics almost for
right.
people to consume.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we got stuck with the legacy of these well-known figures who were really disruptive to settlements in the West. And I was going to say, do we still have that? But maybe we kind of do.
I mean, I don't know if I think that there is an element of anti-government that kind of plays into that nostalgia, that reverence, the wildness of not caring about flaunting the law, flaunting the arm of oppression with, it's part of that American sentiment with anti-government that you get that kind of outlaw fascination.
And
Also,
we still do that today.
yeah, and also they're all white outlaws. Let's also remember that. And the thing is, I will even take the aside to the Capones, the Italian outlaws, because at the time when they were at their height, they were not they were not people weren't necessarily lionizing them at the time when they were doing what they were doing. It's basically as time moved on and they, Italians become more white as opposed to Italians need not apply, Irish need not apply. That kind of thing has kind of happened. So
that's interesting. That's an interesting comment.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next question. Would you pay for social media?
Yes. Because I pay for Netflix.
You pay for the paper.
And I get the paper delivered. So I'm an outlier in that regard.
You are indeed an outlier. 97% said nope.
Yeah. But that's because I understand the date. I mean, not that was condescending.
It's because I know.
Well, I'm an educated man, and I sit on a throne of books. So naturally, I know what I know. No, here's what I will say, people. The reason I'm big into payment is because when you rely on advertisement, or naturally when something is free, it's because, as Jamie knows, you are the product, and I'd prefer not to be the product. So that's really where the impetus, that's where the fire comes from with regard to, I would prefer to pay so that companies do not seek revenue sources outside of that payment. I'd rather pay what they need in order to meet profitability and enjoy the service without interruption from advertisers, or to be the product myself and have my data being sold in order to support the platform. Those are our current alternatives, and there aren't any new alternatives on the horizon with regard to free content. So it's like, how long can we sustain that model? Essentially, it's a race to the bottom, in other words, as well.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. Do you think 97% of our listeners just didn't think of that, or do you think they disagree with you? Is there a counterpoint to what you just said?
There might be a counterpoint. I would love to hear it. Maybe we need a new poll. It says what
why is Antoine wrong?
Yeah, why is one co-host loves to pay. I mean, look, I understand it's a financial hardship. It's one more thing to pay for. But the converse of that is this. I mean, it's like, would you rather pay $6 a month, or the hundreds of thousands of dollars you might have to pay in legal fees because your identity's been stolen, because your data is just all over the place? This company sells your data to a company that may not be as well fortified as a Twitter or an Apple, and they get hacked, because that's really what you're looking at. That's what hackers are looking for. And then now your data is just all over the place. It's sort of like, well, you're going to pay for it at some point. It's just where I'd rather pay up front, personally.
It's fair. And, to be fair to everyone else, not everyone has the time, interest, or even awareness to dive deep into an issue like this and say, well, what do I really think? What are all the pros and cons? So you only know usually about something when you're exposed to the conversation. So hopefully this brief review of this particular question kind of opened some people's eyes, because it's a really good point. Nothing is for free.
Right.
Nothing is for free. You pay for everything. So it's just, how do you want to pay, and how much control do you want to have over it?
Yeah. Excuse me, Jamie. I'm going to wind up my golden pocket watch while I dust off my monocle.
Your hat's
I,
crooked. Your
I
top hat's crooked.
I'm sitting on a chair made of books.
That you have acquired with on your travels.
That's correct. Rare artifacts from the Dark Continent.
God. That's great.
Going on.
Maybe that'll be the name of the episode. All right, moving on. What is cheaper to buy, Twitter or the presidency?
Presidency. Sure, that was
92%. 92%. And, it's funny because it's funny. It's just funny. And, $44 billion is a ton of money.
Yeah.
And you don't see that when you talk about how much someone has raised. It's in the hundreds of millions, but it's not 44 billion.
Yeah.
But are there hidden costs to this, do you think, that would drive the price of the presidency up?
No, because I think, well, I wish Elon was American, because then you could just square away and say it is cheaper to buy power through business means than it is to simply buy power through political or democratic entities. So I mean, the thing is, because he cannot run for president, you don't necessarily know that. But if you were, well, I mean, look at Warren Buffett, right? These guys do not buy into politics, because they know their money is much better served by making more money. So they're using their money to make more money, and then to use that money to influence politics. Elon has basically grabbed the most influential megaphone the world currently has or has ever known, because that is far easier than, I don't know, becoming a humanitarian, trying to get into the United Nations, trying to, or even, I don't know, building a weapons company and lobbying. He's knocked out all of that. He's like, I have the megaphone, I have the mouthpiece. You have to listen to me, because this is it.
Do you think Twitter is more influential than the presidency? I mean, you said the most powerful mouthpiece, but people would argue that the bully pulpit of the US presidency is the most powerful. Do you think this rivals that? You really think it's on par?
I would say because you have access to people every day, whereas the president, unless the president is even signing a bill, that's covered by the news. But if you're not paying attention to that, you're not even going to know what's going on. Twitter, I mean, come on, the media covers everything he tweets. I mean, you can't get more free publicity than owning Twitter. I mean, the man he might be a moron in terms of his business sense, which is definitely coming out, but he's not a moron in terms of what he wants.
But it's interesting. No, I'm not saying he doesn't have a reason for doing this. I don't think it's just for fun. But I mean, you're almost, because the president, as we saw with Trump, owns the news cycle if they want to. Certainly when he has something to say, it's covered. Mm-hmm. If Jack Dorsey or even Elon Musk, I'm not sure that they can own the news cycle to that degree, but they own one of the major channels for news, in a sense, like the conduit, the vehicle.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that Twitter would cover whatever the president has to say. Like, that would drive the trends on Twitter. Yeah, probably more than any other entity or figure in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting debate. Mm-hmm. It's almost like
a chicken or egg scenario.
Yeah, it's like you have the source of news or the paper.
Yeah.
In a sense. Yeah. Like the newsmaker or the newspaper maker.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, yeah.
But I feel like the presidency is weak to the narratives of basically the corporations that kind of own, if we're going to get inside baseball here, again, Fox News is going to be kinder and gentler and promote a positive message around a Republican president, or a president that is, pro-capitalist, pro-big business, maybe slightly racist. Whereas MSNBC is going to not give that same president as much, as much, I don't know, love but to a degree, they're still owned by a corporation that needs profitability, so they're not necessarily going to be out there promoting a socialist message or anything. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the light in which, or the color, the media colors the view depending on what media you pay attention to of the president. Whereas Twitter, I do not see how it's possible. Even if Fox News hated Elon Musk, the the message again, the message that he's able to push out through Twitter supersedes that. I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's like whatever he says through Twitter is more powerful than whatever one single news organization wants to say about him because it's just amplified tenfold. It's like you could cover what he's saying, but it's very difficult to color it. It's very difficult to spin it and make people see something else because they're getting it from the horse's mouth. You whatever whatever Elon said, you most likely got it from someone posting his tweet on another website, the exact tweet as he tweeted it, than you did from a talking head talking about his tweet. You've already seen the tweet. By the time they start talking about it, you've already seen it. So you know what he said. You know what he said already. You've already made up your mind.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And maybe this isn't a fair critique because we are in this situation, but I was going to say that before there was a Twitter, people still got their information. Arguably there is no alternative now, but there's no alternative to the presidency. There's no alternative to some of these other things. Well, we're talking about the presidency. I'm trying to think out loud here. Yeah, I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble with how influential the president is versus the reach of Twitter.
Yeah.
It's like this supreme authority versus reach.
I mean, I don't think it's definitive, but
it
is fun. It's fun for debate. And I think
that's interesting.
If given enough time, you could come up with a million different reasons as to why the presidency might still be more powerful than Twitter.
I mean, it commands an army, so there's that.
Does it? Does it?
I assume Twitter still relies on supply chain, on something that the president could make more painful. H-1 visas, something.
That could be one of them.
So there's something. Okay. Would you live forever if you could?
We know this. The answer is no. This spawned off of our debate as to why someone would want to live forever. You're very much in the camp of it is amazing, it'll be awesome, it'll be so cool. I'm of the camp of you will get tired of it. Your whole world will turn to ash as your loved ones die around you.
You get new loved ones.
It's not worth it.
New ones come up. You'll go through a mourning period. It'll be sad for a little bit. You ever been
to an all-you-can-eat buffet? Especially when it's about one item. You ever done all-you-can-eat lobster?
I'm going to do the best.
I'm going to tell you this right now. The first two, delicious. 3, 4, it just starts tasting like something that came out of the ocean. Not fish.
You need
a creature of the ocean.
Listen, you cannot live forever and be a hermit. That's not what I'm saying. You can't just do the same thing over and over. There is a lot out there. There's a lot to see, and every era offers something new. Have you? I'm going to try not to spoil anything. Have you been watching Sandman?
I have actually. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it too.
So there's a relevant part there that I won't get into, but I so far I would be aligned with one of the characters on there. There's just you could go through bad stuff, but man, life is still interesting. There's still something always to look forward to. So 74% agree with Antoine with a big no. They would not want to live forever. I will agree with one of our commenters to that poll. I don't know who these people are and what they're thinking. I don't know what they're afraid of.
They sound like well-reasoned, sensible people.
I could not disagree with something any more than people should not die. People should live forever.
They sound well-read and well-reasoned. They sound like they live on a throne of books.
I think we should live forever. That frees us up to go out and do so much more, to be so much, I don't know, just so different. That's like a whole new push for humanity.
It's a whole new level of jaded. It's just a level of cynicism that just humanity's never experienced before.
Yeah, it could go either way. We have that now. All right. Next question. Would you edit your genome if it was safe?
Cyberpunk style? Heck yeah.
Whatever you want to do.
I'm just as long as it allows me to equip libs that can shoot missiles and
That's not your genome. That's like
well, I thought it was
attaching weapons like
yeah,
machines to you.
but I
That's not
thought
the question. The
it's not
question
really
here
okay.
is you could design yourself physically and
That's
internally, which means you could give yourself aesthetic features that you wish you had. You could make yourself more muscular, skinny, or whatever. But you could also, health-wise, make yourself immune to disease, grow, fix yourself that way. Or
I thought at some level it allows for the that customization of basically melding metal to biology. I thought that you could
yeah,
get there.
I'm sure that editing your genes would help with the interface with the
Yeah,
machine,
that's what I'm
but you can't.
thinking.
Yeah, but you can't edit your genes to give you a machine gun arm. Like you're
Well,
not going to all of a
no.
sudden grow a machine gun arm.
Well, no, no. The machine gun exists, and I'm able to implant it in my body because of the
So
genes that I've edited.
Antoine's not looking to cure cancer. He's looking to get a machine gun arm. He
Because
wants a
again,
bazooka mounted on his shoulder.
that's because
And
I
that's
see.
what that's the
I
selling
see.
point for the genome editing for him.
That's because I see through this poll. This is just another poll on would you live forever. I'm not editing my genes to avoid all disease. I see through.
That's how could you say that if someone was like, so and so or yourself came down with something, yeah, we could edit that right out, right? Or we could edit it out so you won't ever get these things
I would
upon your
say
birth.
I would say give me my rocket launcher arm and let me be free.
I'll shoot cancer in the face.
I just want to
Well,
sit in a big wide open space blowing rockets into the ground with my cool
it's
rocket arms.
yeah, it's interesting. 58% of our audience said that they would. So this is a pretty even split of people who are, even though it's safe, meaning it's not like you're going to edit it and there's going to be some adverse side effect no one knew about that you're going to get. If it was safe and what happened is exactly what was intended to happen, only 58% of people would do it. And I tried putting in the comments curing disease and everything to kind, prompt some context.
Did you say it's free?
What does it matter? Yeah, it's free. Sure. It's all covered.
I think that's a big deal.
No one's saying that. No one's voting no because they're imagining they can't afford it. Like that's not part of the scenario here. And I'm not going to give people that as an out. People are actually saying no.
Okay.
Almost half of our audience. And that is
I'll
blowing my mind.
I am in the context of this. If no one is basically shouting you gifts of Cyberpunk 2077 as this is what I want to do, then yeah, if it's just about curing cancer and avoiding disease, I think it would be higher. You're right. That's surprising. Most people I think would just say yes. Yeah, sure.
And what about your gray hair turning out or giving yourself different colored eyes or physically making yourself maybe have a higher metabolism or lower, whatever.
You do realize none of this is as cool as interfacing with your car, right? Like just putting it out there.
Yeah. I know that you're not going to get away from this. So I think we're going to move on to the next question.
All right, moving on.
Antoine is dwelling on becoming one with his machines.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question. The likelihood that the Department of Justice will prosecute Trump.
Oh man, that's just got to edit this quick before the new year because I feel like that's coming. I don't know if they're gonna. I don't know.
Well, a referral was made.
Yeah, the referral was made. So who knows?
Just ceremonial at best, but we'll see what the DOJ does. What do you think?
I think it's still very. You know what? I think it might be likely because it might be likely. I would say it could be likely. I still see some sort of pardon coming down the pike, but sure.
Oh God, I hope
possible.
78% said unlikely.
Well,
unlikely.
That's what our
with the majority in extremely unlikely. I just grouped them all together.
Wow.
So yeah, 78% unlikely. I can see the cynicism there.
Yeah.
The skepticism, I get it.
Mm-hmm. Same.
I still don't know. I honestly don't. And you would hope that, I guess, Merrick Garland, it's his decision maybe.
Yeah.
That he's going to make a decision based on whether or not it's prosecutable. Is that a word?
Yeah.
That he can prosecute it?
Well, I mean, not just that he can win.
Well,
I mean,
that's what I mean by that. That there's enough evidence there that he can win, and
yeah,
he's not going to embarrass himself, the department, the country, or
yeah.
waste resources. I hope that it's not a political decision. I hope that he really is looking at this for what's best for the country by the law and how any other citizen would be treated, because I think that is what's best for the country.
Which
You
is
and
a
I have had
political
debate on
decision.
you and well, no, it's the law. It's not a political. I mean, it's a political decision in terms of that's the
How you
policy.
enforce the law, what you choose
No,
to do
that
after
you
it.
don't treat him any differently. And I think you've disagreed with me on the past in this, that I don't think anyone should be treated any differently.
I
I don't
have.
care what position you are in.
You're right.
Um, I don't know if you still feel that way, and it's whatever, but I firmly believe that I don't care if it's Trump or anyone else, they should all be treated the same way as anyone else. And we don't even get that on our level. We've talked about this before, where minorities are treated differently than whites within our judicial system. But then when you go into people with money, and then people of office, elected office, it's on steroids.
Yeah.
So I think that across the board, we need more equality in the way that sentencing is handed out.
I would love more equality. I would love it.
We'll see what happens. 78% aren't too sure that he's going to be prosecuted, but
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting poll.
Circling back to our genome themed one, we had another one. If you could safely edit your genes, notice I keep putting that in because I don't want to freak anyone out. But if you could safely edit your genes to acquire a non-human trait, what would you pick? There were 4 options: eagle eyes for distance, cat's night vision, gills, Costner style, or a dog's sense of smell.
See, I picked gills, but I think most people did not.
It was towards the bottom, 18% on the gills.
Yeah.
Dog sense of smell was dead last at 6%, with some rather funny comments, basically about the stench of humanity and who would want to smell that any more than we already have to, which is fair.
Serious existentialists out there.
But and then one person brought up wings, and I think we talked about that on the pod as well, and that would turn you into a completely different animal. We are not built structurally to have wings, and refer back to our episode on that. But the top 2, eyes, eye themes. The winner was eagle eyes, the distance, with 40%, and on its coattails, cat's night vision at 35%. So interesting. I think people just think having vision would be cool. I'm surprised actually that night vision didn't win.
Me too.
You were the one that kind of threw me for a loop, because mine would have been night vision.
Yeah.
I think that would just be cool. But then you were like gills, and it's just like, you don't have to worry about dying from something that covers the majority of this planet.
I mean, I think more so than that. I mean, it's like our next undiscovered playground kind of thing. You can have you become Aquaman. You can build a whole city of people down in the depths of the ocean.
You're not really controlling water, but
no. Well, okay, fine. You're right, but
more like the Little Mermaid, maybe.
Yeah, more like
without the trident.
Well, yeah, you could bring a trident. It's up to you.
But the trident controlled the water, right? That was like magical. So you're just kind of
sure, but you
Little
can
Mermaid.
still rule over an ocean kingdom with a trident. There's nothing stopping you. That's what's beautiful about having gills. You could just be down there with whatever you choose to be down there with, whatever trinkets, thingamabobs.
Whatchamacallit?
You've got plenty.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it too. You would need to be able to pressurize. You would need to be able to regulate your body temperature. I think most fish need to always stay in motion to have the water come through their gills. So there are some nuances, almost like wishing from a genie. You got to know exactly what you want to be able to get the full package.
I mean, do you? Because all that means is no office jobs underwater.
No office jobs?
No, because you got to keep moving.
Oh.
You can't just sit and stare at a screen all day.
Sounds laborious. You're not allowed to stop moving all day.
Just saying, you just got
all the wind turbines, all the ocean turbines. If there's no the current slows, the wind's there, they just have manpower spinning them.
Well,
like a burst of
let's hope the gill people have a little bit more pull in this world, because that's
the gill people be driven down into the Mariana Trench.
Yeah, sad existence there.
All right, next question. We got 3 more. If you lived by a hiking trail, would you let hikers hike across your property?
How big is my property?
It's up to you.
If it's big, yes. If it's not, no.
That's interesting.
Let's put it this way. Let's say I don't have a backyard. All I have is a front yard. I mean, look, this is not likely. The reason I'm just putting it out there
But then
is
you don't really
because
value property, or at least you don't have the means to value it. I mean, what, you have like 4 feet in front of your home, you're going to be
that's
mad if someone puts their foot on it?
well, I just think it's going to be annoying if every time you come out, there's just a bunch of people just walking through your 4 feet of front lawn there. I just think that that's just not very neighborly.
I think in that scenario, there will be either a street or a sidewalk for them to go on,
Yes,
right?
for urbanism, yes, of course, because you'd be in an urban environment with that small of a footprint for your property. Yeah,
So let's just say an acre average. You got an acre.
yeah. Okay, sure.
You're cool.
Yes, yeah, I am cool because it's
What if it is
it's
like
neighborly?
100 people a day going through? No big deal.
It depends on how it is. If it's starting to damage if the
What if
trail
they have
is,
to camp overnight?
it definitely starts to edge on uncomfortability when you have the what could be exactly you could open it up optimistically to hikers and then end up with squatters. And what's the difference? And that needs to be clearly defined.
Well,
Which
squatters need what they would have to stay there. So I assume
exactly,
it
but
would be on you to be like, is that the same tent from yesterday?
or the next week. You guys are still here? I thought you're hiking through. So you so
I thought
I'm
you were
just saying-
hiking.
right. Yeah. So I'm just saying that I think that's what people get worried about. But I think when we were talking about that episode with the CDT and what Maxine, you're talking about acres upon acres of land. I mean, these are massive ranches. So you would hope that there'd be some incentive to just let people walk through because you basically own your land is blocking the trail. So, I mean,
Well, there are, I mean,
like-
even going back to I don't know if it was the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail that
Mm-hmm.
Maxine was also talking about from her past hikes, is that it did go through residential properties on those trails.
Yeah.
So for the CDT specifically, it was more wilderness and ranches, but the question is more generalized. You bring up a good point to think about the size, but there were some reasons why people were voting. So 57% said yes, they would, but a huge amount of comments came back on liability. Now, I was curious, and I didn't press it in the comments. Liability is a legitimate concern. Someone gets hurt on your property, can they sue you? I know that in at least more urban areas, if you have a dead tree, it's on the homeowner to recognize it and take it down. Not because you'll get fined, but if that tree falls and hurts someone, you are liable, at least the way that I understand it.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? Or the tree falls, damages a fence, you're responsible. But I wonder how much of it is that, if it's more of a convenient excuse, and how much is it, which is kind of what it sounds like you might be getting at, is I don't want to see these people on my property. It's my property. It's mine. I don't want them on there. It's just unsightly.
You
Get
don't
off.
know. So it could be a recluse. They could have.
You don't know
social
these
anxiety.
people, right? Are they dangerous?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. There's a lot of things that could come about.
Are they
it.
going to ruin your yard that you're paying for?
Well, you have to be on
it's your property,
you,
right?
You necessarily might not be able to relax. It depends. Again, it's about the proximity. It's how close. If people are just squatting every day in your front yard, it could be a bit of a nuisance, and it makes your mental, sanity. I mean, it will add a level of anxiety to it because like you said, you don't know who these people are. You'll always have to be on some form of high alert. Just based on the fact that we're human and strangers are something that is triggers our fight or flight response. So there's just that, but I mean it doesn't necessarily speak to what's going on out there in the trail because they're not within sight of a house normally, I would assume.
Well, again, Maxine had said it did cut through some residential areas where it was very much on people's property. Now, whether or not that property was small enough where the trail was in sight of the house, I don't know. So that's a good question. But
if it's at the back of a long yard, have at it. You could even make another fence just to
basically
say, hey,
as long as I don't see you. That's what Antoine is saying. As long as I can't see you from my porch, when I'm out there with my feet on a stack of books,
that's
sipping
correct.
my whiskey, polishing off
Bourbon,
my monocle and
bourbon,
gold watch.
you heathen.
Bourbon. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. reading the paper. He does not want to hear the rustlings of hikers. Now, I'd be curious because you said put up a fence. The mere blocking of them visually, knowing that, almost not knowing if they're whether or not they're on the other side of it, could be maddening in itself.
Possibly.
Yeah. All right. So there's that one. Countdown 2 left. Now you're familiar with Elon's ruling around his location, and that anyone publishing his location, even if it's publicly available information, would be booted, banned from Twitter, right? Did you hear about this?
Yep, I did.
The guy with the jet
Yes.
information, he got booted. Some journalists that apparently published location that was, again, publicly available, he booted them.
Yep.
And then a lot of people had a field day where he kind of, and he calls it doxing.
Yes, well,
posted
it's called doxing, yeah.
Well, I'm just saying in case anyone doesn't know.
Right.
He posted his location in real time, which is his big thing, no real time posting. He posted his own real time information at the World Cup, and everyone had a field day because he self-doxed. And now what? Because he's so rigid about the application of this rule on his platform, because he was like, no nonsense, anyone, I don't care what it is, if you post real-time location data, I don't care if it's a check-in or what, you will be banned. He did it to himself. So we had the poll. How long should Elon be suspended for self-doxing? 1 day, 10 days, 30 days, or a lifetime?
How much do I think? Or what do I think the people did?
You give both answers.
Oh, the people did lifetime because they don't want him on this platform or anywhere near this particular piece of software. I think 30 days is a good ban for someone who is actually breaking this rule, personally.
Okay. 87% said lifetime.
Yep.
87%. I think that you're right in that it is just a way to try and get him out. This was also, it was right before, but then ran simultaneously as his own polling question of whether or not he should step down, which I firmly believe is just part of his plan to not probably lead and be burdened with leadership. It's probably part of his exit strategy. Do you think? You think he's just doing it for fun?
I think he's enough of a narcissist to have actually believed that the majority of people would have voted. You're doing.
You think so? Oh, wow. I thought that he probably wants out eventually, and it might be a year from now, but he is going to lean on this poll and say, I'm honoring the wishes of the people.
Maybe at some point. Maybe at some point. Maybe.
I think it provided him an out.
Maybe. Yeah, you might be more right. But he would definitely, I mean, he'll still be in control in some capacity.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be the owner. He's just not going to be the CEO. He's going to be the board member or the board chairman or whatever. So that's interesting. So the last one is almost a repeat, but it's a more current version of the other question, which is interesting because it was done on a different thread. So some of the polls we run on our own page, and some of them we run in the comments of other people's posts, depending on the relevancy, or if that opportunity is afforded to us. If not, we post it on our own page. And so we ran another one, and it was, will the DOJ prosecute Trump? Now, if you remember a couple questions back, it was the likelihood the DOJ will prosecute Trump, and 78% said unlikely. What do you think a more recent poll of that was to a different audience?
I think it's probably more favorable to that it will happen. I think that because I think people are starting to see that it's on the table. Again, it's about whether they think they can win, but I definitely can see. I don't know if there is as much of a pushback in terms of dedicating manpower, resources, and money to a trial with regard to this. So I'm starting to feel that it might happen. What I feel bad for people is that even if they did prosecute him, I guess I still stand by the fact that I do think there will be some sort of weird pardoning that might not be true pardoning. But I'm going to say that the poll was more in favor of they'll prosecute him.
60% said yes, so down considerably from 78% no. 60% yes. It's kind of still almost an even split, but I think people are the shock of it is probably wearing off. And all of these questions, by the way, if I didn't mention, were in sequential order in terms of throughout the year. So this is the most recent poll that we've run in our final poll for the year. But as of now, yeah, maybe the shock of it all, it's kind of settling a little bit, and people are starting to say, hey, we see his allies distancing themselves from him.
Yeah.
The networks that used to promote him really did a 180. And that isn't even a recent thing.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see the stage being set to say, hey, he's not one of ours, almost in the most ironic way possible, because every time something would happen to one of Trump's inner circle, his go-to response was, oh, I hardly know him. I met him once or twice. You know, he always just never had any idea who any of these people were, regardless of the evidence to the contrary. So in true Trumpian fashion, his own allies and party seem to be distancing and saying, Trump who?
Well, ship's sinking. Rats got to float.
There you go. So those are the 14 2022 polls, Antoine, year in review.
That's a good year. Man, that was a meaty year. I want more polls next year.
More polls, more interesting questions, probably larger audiences. We did grow considerably throughout the year. So thank you to everyone who has joined the Retraction group. So yeah, this has been great.
Yeah. All right. Happy New Year, Retractionitas? Retractionitos?
I was trying to figure out something to say, like retractors
I like
or
that.
something.
Not bad.
But then I was like, I don't know. Is that weird?
I kind of like it, because then when we eventually get that merch out there, we could basically take a big tractor and have it reversing over something. I'm not a marketer, but conceptually, so so people out there are the retractors. I like it.
And you're gonna
It's
just
not
go
bad.
with the tractors right on the nose. A tractor going in reverse.
I feel like
It's going all in.
Sometimes it's not like they designed Monopoly and didn't put the properties on the board. Okay, sometimes you just need to see it. You need to see it to believe it.
There you go.
JB, where can they find us?
Listeners, if you like the pod, please subscribe, like, comment on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and more. Follow us on Twitter at Retraction Media. That's where you'll see these polls, and share Retraction Podcast with somebody today. Happy winter solstice.
And with that, Retraction out.